This is the season of Christmas cards, and if you're like me, you've received, cards from some pictures of families in the mail, and I always think it's funny, how all the families, everyone looks all happy, and coming from a family of 11 kids, we tried that a couple of times, the family photo thing. And of course, we're all smiling, and I always think it would be funny to take a picture like 10 seconds before the actual picture where everyone's fighting and, making fun of each other and stuff like that. Or maybe to send out like a picture of the family on the way to karate practice and soccer practice, wolfing down McDonald's in the van, a little more natural types of things, or a picture of all of us when I was growing up, all the brothers when we had just getting done fighting with one another and somebody was bleeding. That would be a little bit more realistic, I think, of a Christmas card. But we have again these sort of idealized, in some cases, idealized families. And, again, coming from a family of 11, everyone was like, oh, you're all blonde and you're all behave at Mass and, you're all a bunch of angels. And I would always say, I can assure you there are no angels in the bunch, myself included. And I think that, again, too, when we look at the Holy Family, we're kind of like, wow, that's never going to be that. Perfect son, perfect mother, saintly father, that's beyond the reach of our family. And I just wanted to reflect a little bit about that this weekend. I had the opportunity in the seminary, every Wednesday they would, instead of going to classes, we would scatter throughout southern Indiana doing ministry. We all had a ministry assignment, and I was placed in a family counseling center in Louisville. And so every Wednesday I would trot over to Louisville, and I was really blessed. There was a Louisville, University of Louisville counseling program that was also there. So we got feedback from some great counselors, some doctors and stuff that were there. And so we kind of got to intern, if you will, with family counseling. I realized very quickly what we had learned in our textbooks, but seeing it in practice was much different and much more impactful. And that was the idea that the church says that the family is the primary cell of society, the primary building block of any healthy society and of any society in general. And because you realize no matter what problem a person came with, or sometimes it was a husband and wife, or sometimes it was a family in general, or sometimes it was just a person by themselves coming for some counseling. And basically, no matter what it was, it always came back to the family. The family, whether it was a relationship with a parent or with the sibling, or just the family dynamics. And then I think the other thing that I realized pretty quickly too is that most of the ways that our family affects us is on a level that we're not aware of right away. So like on our what we would refer to as the subconscious. So if I go up and ask someone on the street, how does your relationship with your father or your mother or your siblings affect you? They would be like, I don't know. Nothing doesn't really bother me that much. But if you sit down most of the time and you talk with someone for an hour or so and you ask some questions, what you see pretty quickly is that, in fact, our family does have a great impact on us, and we bring our family with us and our relationships with us. And I think that most of us, it's interesting that idea is there present in most of our pop culture. In our television shows and in our movies and stuff, we all kind of have this basic understanding today that many past generations did not, that our family is an important player in our psychological makeup and who we are. We see it in television shows and Dr. Phil and all these other places. And, the relationship that our parents have with us and our siblings. But I think that basically, the one problem that I would say with that is that it's good that we know that, but typically the way that our culture presents our psychological family makeup is that it's assumed that our family has screwed us up, that we're messed up because of our family. So, you know, you see some kind of psychological show on television, or they're doing counseling or whatever it may be, and the question, it's assumed, oh, okay, so you're here for help. Well, let's figure out how your father messed you up. Or let's figure out how your relationship with your brothers or your sisters, or how, you know, you being the oldest child or the youngest child or the middle child, let's figure out how that messed you up. And, you know, that's the assumption, that it caused problems for you. I think what the church is saying is that we have to say, let's recognize the power and the importance and the influence that our families have on us. But if as our culture says, if it can mess you up, then it has to also be the case that on the other end of the spectrum, that our family has a tremendous power to have a positive influence on us. And we have to get past that idea that it necessarily we're all messed up because of our families. It also has to be the case, the other end of the spectrum again, that our families can have a dramatic influence on us in a positive way. And again, I think the church is holding that out to us as a possibility. The church doesn't, you know, have its, you know, head in the clouds and is like, oh, it's all great and, you know, nothing bad ever happens in our families. No, we know that. The church is aware of that. But again, the church is just saying, look, let's admit that we can have a good influence and there can be positive aspects to our family as well, despite what Dr. Phil and others might be saying. And so let's take then a minute. I sat down with the catechism this week and just kind of looked at what the church has to say about families. And there's some really beautiful things in there. And I wanted to just share those with you here momentarily. The first thing we hear from the book of Sirach, our first reading today at Mass, is talking about the need to honor our fathers and our mothers. The need to honor them and to respect them. And we even hear, especially that important challenge for us, talking about taking care of our parents when they are old. Taking care of our parents when they are old. And certainly that's a situation that we find ourselves more and more in as our life expectancy continues to grow. That becomes a challenge more and more for people, you know, trying to figure out the best way to care for their parents. But there's also a lot of beauty in that. Despite the difficulties that can bring for people, there's also a lot of opportunity there to repay our parents for the care that they gave to us when we needed them, when we were younger. Now we as caregivers, as children, can turn around oftentimes and repay the favor to our parents and show them the honor and the respect that they have been given. The Catechism says as well that obedience to our parents ceases when we leave home. Obedience ceases when and that makes sense. That's just kind of saying, you know, look, when you're 33 and you're living on your own, if your mom called you and said you have to be in by 11, that would be kind of weird. You know, we don't have to, we are on our own, but it says that although obedience ceases when we leave home, respect does not. Respect does not. And I think that that's just such a great phrase and something that we have to work on. It says as well, the Catechism says it's our duty to support our parents in illness, in loneliness, in old age, and in distress. And I think that that's a really a powerful and a beautiful thing to be striving for with our parents. The other thing, I think that the reason that the church is encouraging us to do this, I think there's also, it's not just that we're doing a favor for our parents, it also helps us find some peace maybe with our parents and in the relationship that we have with them. You know, if you think about it, when we're young, when we're really little, we view our parents oftentimes as gods. And because in a very real way, they care for us, they give us everything that we have, they provide for us, and they are, in real way, kind of like the masters of our universe that we grow up in. And so as we grow into our young years and then, into our teenage years and 20s and 30s, there oftentimes is a real difficulty with it when we finally start to realize that they are not gods, and that our parents, in fact, are people, and people who commit sins and who are not perfect. And so making peace with that, and there are some people who are in their 70s, their 80s, their 90s who still have not made peace with the fact that their parents weren't perfect people. And so we have to get that healing that we need. And so caring for our parents and being present to them amidst their vulnerabilities of old age and illness and distress and the difficulties that they face is also healthy for us to come to terms with the fact of who our parents are and who they were for us, to thank them and to honor them, and to also come to grips with the fact that they are not perfect, but yet nonetheless we're called to care for them. It also encourages us to, with regards, the church encourages us to find peace and forgiveness and harmony with our siblings out of respect for our parents. And I think that that's a great thing. Many of us, again, are affected by our brothers and sisters, our relationships. Again, Psych 101 would tell us that, if you're the oldest child, you get all the attention and everyone else is messed up. And, so on and so forth. And if you're a middle child, you're going to be messed up. And if you're the youngest child, you're going to be messed up too. And all of these things that need to find peace and reconciliation with our brothers and sisters is really important too. And again, the Catechism asks us to do that out of care for our parents. Towards our brothers and sisters, the Catechism asks us to be tireless in forgiveness for offenses, quarrels, injustices, and neglect. And so again, the church not having its head, in the clouds, the church acknowledging here the things that happen between brothers and sisters, and yet the need to forgive, and the need to find healing there as well. And then finally, I want to just turn really quickly and look at what the church is teaching about parents towards their children. So we were looking there at children towards parents. Now we want to look at the Catechism has a couple beautiful things to say about towards parents and families. It says, first of all, that parents are to be the primary educators in the faith. And it says a very beautiful line, the Catechism does. It says, it is almost impossible to find an adequate substitute for the role that a parent plays in handing on the faith. It is almost impossible to find an adequate substitute. I've grown up in parishes and visited parishes as a youngster, as a seminarian, as a priest, and you see this sort of mindset that has crept into American Catholicism, which I think is really dangerous and really harmful. And you see, I don't mean here necessarily either, because I think, we're a pretty small parish, but especially in large parishes, you see this mentality where a lot of parents have this mindset. I drop my child off at religious ed every Sunday for an hour, and DRE or religious ed instructor or whoever, father or whoever, it's your job. You have an hour with my child. Give them the faith. Pass it on to them. And then I pick them up, and we don't talk about the faith. We don't pray. We don't do anything else at home. And it's the church's job in that 1 hour to pass the faith on to the child. And that is completely harmful, completely damaging, completely against what the church is asking of parents. The church is saying if you are a parent or a grandparent or a caretaker, whatever role you have, I think pretty much every one of us has children and young people in our lives that we have the potential to influence. We are asked to pass on the faith to our children, but especially our parents. And I think that is a call that we as American Catholics need to do a much better job of heeding. And when we do that, I think our families will continue to grow in strength. It also gives some good advice to parents about how to deal with their children. It says, do not provoke your children in anger, but bring them up in the ways of the Lord. We certainly know that at times it's difficult, but sometimes as parents we take it too far. We take discipline. We're not just bringing them up in the Lord, but we're actually carrying that discipline too far, and we provoke our children to anger. And I think that that's always something that we need to be mindful of as parents. The need to bring my children up and to discipline them, to teach them respect and love, but also to not take it to the point where I'm inciting anger and hatred and so on and so forth. And so, again, this season, this day, when we're celebrating the Holy Family, we recognize pretty early on in our lives that we are not members of a perfect family. And neither was the Holy Family. They were not perfect either. You think maybe if the Holy Family wrote a Christmas card, they might say, I doubt they put the story in about, we left our son in Jerusalem for 3 days. The Holy Family's not perfect, we're not perfect, but we strive to be more rooted in love, to be more rooted and centered around Christ and His forgiveness and His respect, the respect and honor that we show our family members. And we pray that we may be more closely conformed to the Holy Family today than we were yesterday.